Hello everyone and welcome to the Village Halls podcast, sponsored by Allied Westminster, the UK's largest specialist provider of village hall insurance and the home of Village Guard. Village church and community halls often rely heavily on rental fees paid by those using their buildings to deliver services and activities to the community. So if, for some reason, those services or activities suddenly stop, halls can find themselves in a bit of a financial pickle. My guest today, Finbar Murphy, is the chair of Cookham Village Hall in Berkshire, which lost its main tenant just over 2 years ago. Now, thankfully, they responded in quite an innovative way with an idea that's not only kept everything going for the hall, but it's also helping local residents and businesses and has even spread to another community nearby. Hi, Finbar. Thanks for joining me on the show today.
Hi, Johnny. It's my pleasure.
So tell me about Cookham Dean. Yeah, your involvement with the Village Hall and what exactly happened back in October 2019, which led, to a bit of a rethink there.
Sure, yeah, okay. So in terms of background, the Village Hall, or the Cookham Dean Village Hall, has been in existence for over 50 years. Until recently, there was a long-term tenant nursery childcare centre that was operational every day, but unfortunately they closed down in October 2019, which is obviously a dent in the, as you say, the rental revenues for the hall.
Yeah.
But also it did give us a little bit of an opportunity in terms of, until then the hall was unavailable on a daily basis every morning.
Right.
So we were sort of restricting the scope of what we could, maybe other services we could offer. So it was a good time to have a bit of a rethink and see what else we could do. And we struck upon the idea of trying a local market just one day a week to see how that might work as a replacement, and also as something that we thought the village was in need of, as we'd lost our traditional village shop about 12 years prior. So we sort of started some planning on that, and then we had the situation in early 2020.
I'm just thinking, timing-wise, October 2019, all good plans laid, and then suddenly something else happened. Yeah,
yeah. So we had the big C word in sort of, I guess it was January or February of 2020. So we decided just to put it on hold, because at the time we thought it wasn't appropriate to be doing something, and we would just sort of wait and see how things panned out. But what we discovered in the next couple of months is that there were quite a few local producers who were living in or near the village who lost their traditional route to market. So we had a market gardener who used to supply all the local restaurants with fresh vegetables, and we had some bakers who'd been furloughed by one of the local restaurants. And we decided we would just try the market on a sort of a small scale to help those suppliers out, and also to sort of test the water a little bit. So in about June of 2020, we started a market on a Friday mornings in the hall, initially just with three stalls, and we were pleasantly surprised by the number of people that came along to support it. Now, obviously, some of that was because it was the middle of lockdown and there wasn't as much to do as they probably normally had. But I think there was, from the off, there was quite a groundswell of people wanting to support local producers and doing things locally. So we've just really grown from that. We managed to trade all the way through both lockdowns, and as the restrictions were eventually lifted, we could increase the capacity and so forth. So, we've gone from having 3 stalls, which was essentially bread, vegetables and cheese, to about 18 at this week's market. Actually, I just counted it before.
Wow.
And they're a mix, mostly food, but also some, and it can be a bit seasonal, sort of local craft and art producers like to come along.
Yeah, and you came up with an interesting name for the market as well, didn't you?
Well, we did. We sort of had the name Meter Market in mind, and the idea behind that was more to do with food miles or food kilometres, and bringing food or local produce available meters from your door. Now, because of COVID, it sort of got It's just has been assumed that it's to do with the 2-meter ruling that we had for our spacing during lockdowns. But we did think of it before COVID, so we're like try and get it back to what it is. I mean, and for us, it is where we can about supporting local producers. I mean, of the ones we've got at the moment, I think we got 12 of them are all small, single person businesses that have either started up in the last 2 years or are just trading, maybe not as their full-time jobs, but just something they want to do on a Friday type thing. So we're quite pleased, and we continually get new requests from people who are interested in trying a stall or want to know how to get started. So that's quite a pleasing aspect of it for us, that it's not big businesses just pretending to be small. It's genuinely people who are starting up and producing something themselves and then selling it.
No complaints from the imperialists insisting that you should call it the yard market instead or anything like that.
Well, we all have to sort of move with the time, so I think we're all metric now. So we'll have to stick with metres. Plus, it rhymes better than yard market, I think.
Yeah. Good one. It's probably best we don't even go there anyway, because it could turn into all kinds of interesting debate. But how do you promote it, Finn? Because it sounds like it's grown and it's grown into quite a popular thing. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, in terms of a market, we don't get thousands of people turning up. We get around 100 people roughly a week would come along to the market. But I think the difference is they do come along to buy and support it more than sort of going somewhere and then there's a market, so you'd have a browse around and maybe buy one thing, So we do try and because it's weekly, we are encouraging people to change their shopping habits to shop locally and so forth. So we have some. We've done various sort of leaflet drops and banners around the village, but we have quite a lot of social media presence and postings that go out. And we've built, with the help of a local lady, quite a strong sort of Instagram following and so forth. So we promote it quite heavily on Facebook, Instagram.
Brilliant.
And we run our own sort of emailing and promotions across a customer base as well.
Excellent. And with the success of it all, I guess you must feel a lot more confident now about the long-term viability of the hall as well, of course, which is really important.
I think, if I put my sort of village hall hat on, yes, it has been a godsend. During the lockdown period, obviously we had minimum rental happening, so that was good. But now we can sort of see we've got a steady stream, and because of the way the market operates, we've pretty well replaced about half of the revenue we're getting from a long-term 5-day rental.
Yeah,
just by renting the market out for one morning. And we still have four mornings where we can now do other things. So we've got a couple of dance classes and some other things that just want it for an hour that we can now accommodate as well. So it does look like it's going to be a viable solution for us moving forward.
Yeah, and that wider support to the community as well, especially with the small businesses that you mentioned. I gather you've even had a few new businesses spring up as a result of this. Yeah,
we've had at least 4 people that I can think of off the top of my head who've started a business or tried some business product, a granola or a different style of baking through the market, and then they've sort of been able to tweak that. And we're fairly supportive of people who want to try something. So we can help them with various things, with technologies and with some stall space and stuff, and even paper bags and boxes that they might need just to minimize their investment. And it's quite good to see that they get started and now they're growing and going off to other markets and have some confidence that their product is good as well. So that's a pleasing aspect of it.
Brilliant. Yeah. And as I mentioned in the intro as well, the idea has also expanded elsewhere, hasn't it, to another village, which is just the other side of Maidenhead, right?
Yeah, we are trialing one in Hollyport, a second village, which is only literally 15 minutes away. We like all village hall, well, like most of the village halls, we're a volunteer community, and to have a weekly activity that is manned by volunteers is quite difficult or nearly impossible. So we did early on decide we would try and make this a commercial solution where over time we can just say it's profitable enough that that it's a small little part-time business for someone to run the markets on our behalf. And part of sort of having more than one market being operated by the same people was just to see if we get a little bit of economy of scale, and get it to a point where it's something that can be run and by an independent, and then the halls essentially are just become landlords. And that's, I think, the model that we will. Probably going to need to tweak it to make it work, but that's part of our expansion into another village, just to see how that can progress.
Yeah, and you're extending the availability of the produce online as well, so I guess the scope for things to grow even further if that sort of takes off too. Yeah.
Yes, we do. So as part of as well as being a traditional market, we also run a website for ordering and pick up, where people can order products and just pick them up from the market, at the door, if you like, or in some cases, some things will run out, so at least they can sort of, have them kept to one side. But we also will do deliveries in the local area, which obviously in lockdown was quite handy for people who were isolating and so forth. And we do have some people who still use the service now, just to order stuff when they maybe aren't capable of getting up to the market or working that day, so we can deliver to them in the local area as well.
Excellent. Well, I'll pop a link to the Meter Market site on our website with this episode. It's a great idea, Finbar, and one I'm sure other halls across the country will definitely be interested in too. Let me ask how much of a challenge it's been, and also what your advice would be for anywhere else maybe looking to start their own local market in a similar way.
I think that there is a lot more work required to get it up and running, and to manage your sort of stallholders and get that momentum going than we thought. I mean, we were probably a little bit spoiled in terms of lockdown encouraged more people to shop locally, so the environment was right for starting up. But to maintain a rota of if you want to have a weekly market to encourage people to change their shopping habits, then you have to have enough stallholders so you can rotate them around and keep the lineup fresh, if you like. And that is a bit of a challenge, actually, just in terms of managing all of the different stallholders and making sure that you keep your market full. We've invested quite a bit in some technology and infrastructure to make that easier for us, and that is certainly something that makes the day-to-day running of it and the reconciliation of all the money that goes through and so forth much easier than when we first started. We were pretty well doing it manually, and we made some investments early on that are sort of paying off now in terms of the speed and the efficiencies that we can get from it.
Yeah. I think the thing I really like is the fact that, in essence, this all started off with a negative, in terms of losing that key tenant. But it seems to me you immediately jumped to the positive and thought, well, that frees up space and time for us to do something else rather than just thinking we're doomed. It's all over, and I think that's great.
I think you do. As a village hall, you sort of get complacent because this. It was a shame to lose them because they'd been part of the village in infrastructure for so long, but we probably had taken it for granted they would always be there, so it was a bit of an initial shock. But it has turned out to be a positive thing, and we sort of have to then make most use of it.
I guess you must just all feel very proud to have got the whole thing up and running, especially during that time as well. And we have sort of noticed a couple of sort of ancillary benefits for the village hall or the village community. We find that new people who've moved into the village, particularly in the last 18 months, there hasn't been as much sort of community activity or fetes or things that they would go to find out more about the village. So we find they turn up at the market, and quite a few of the stallholders live in the village. So all of a sudden there's a connection. They'll find someone who's at the same school as their children. They can find out all the various little bits of information about what day's bin day and so forth, and what's the best pub and those activities. And
previously maybe that was a community shop, or the village shop would have held that role, and we're finding the market does become a little bit of a focus. People take quite a long time coming through and chatting to all the storeholders, chatting to each other, and that's sort of been an added bonus for us, I think, in terms of sort of moving the village hall a little bit back to the centre of the community, and making it sort of a purposeful bit of the fabric. So we're sort of pleased we've been able to do that as well.
Well, that's wonderful. Yeah. Thanks for taking the time to tell us about the meter market, Finbar. It's always great to hear about successful local ideas, and in particular, thanks for sharing your story with our listening community.
It's a pleasure. Yep. Could I just mention one thing? Other thing we have done there is, as part of it, we just started running, at the request of one of our customers, a weekly raffle for charity, because particularly during lockdown, there's a lot of fundraising goes on in this area for various local charities, and we found that they couldn't do their bingo nights and suppers that they maybe would do. So we've just been running a local weekly charity hamper raffle with all goods donated by the storeholders, and then the customers buy tickets in that, and that's actually turned out to be really successful. I think we've raised about nearly £12,000 in a year just by having the footfall and having the market, and then adding something on top of it. So that's been a nice little bonus for the local charities in our area.
Yeah, so it's just a range of charities in the local area that the funds go to.
Some are small niche ones for here. Others are, we've got some palliative care homes here, Sue Ryder, and the NSPCC. So it's a mix of different ones that are based around this area.
And isn't that fantastic? You always get this, don't you, with a community idea? There's just always so many things that then subsequently spin off, as you've mentioned, whether it's people coming together more, or like you say, new ideas, raffles, prizes. It's just wonderful stuff.
Yeah, and it makes it an enjoyable thing as well. I think if it's just anything to do with anything we can make that makes it more community focused, I think is an improvement, and people enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, brilliant. As I say, Finbar, thanks very much for coming on and
excellent. My pleasure.
And sharing your story. Yeah. And that's all, folks, for this episode. Many, many thanks to our headline sponsor and specialist insurance provider, Allied Westminster, for making our podcast possible, and whose services you can discover more about at villageguard.com. And to online booking system provider Hallmaster, who also sponsor our podcast and can be found at hallmaster.co.uk. Quick thanks also to Kate Meads, Community Buildings Advisor at Connecting Communities in Berkshire, who kindly got in touch to let us know about the meter market. Thanks, Kate. Keep them coming. You've been listening to the Village Halls podcast, a unique listening community for Britain's village, church and community halls, and anyone interested in the vital community services they provide. We'll be back again soon with another episode, so if you haven't already, please visit thevillagehallspodcast.com to subscribe, sign up for updates, link through to our social media pages, and to find out more. Until the next time, goodbye for now.